Hello and thank you for joining me. The subject today is in Haria in Lanzarote, and it's the market scene. There's a Saturday market there every week, and it's quite lively, and that's what I'm going to be painting for you today. So obviously there is a sky, nice blue sky. Generally speaking, that's what you get over there. And for that I'm going to use a little mix here that this doesn't granulate, so that's why it's quite useful. The phthalo on its own is a little too turquoisey, but a little bit of the magenta just quietens it down a little bit. Remember, plenty of paint, plenty of water. Although it's a white building, I don't want the building to be pure white. And then down here where we have the people and the little stalls, there's just lots of colours there. So all I'm going to do here is just drop in a lot of different colours. So I'm not painting people, I'm sort of putting marks where the people are, which is slightly different. So all of this application of paint is just to give interest. That's everything, that's all. Now in the distance things will tend to get a bit grey, but closer up we will definitely see more in the way of definite colour. And I'm just really going through my paint box here, and I'm just dropping in different colours in different places. Now it's maybe enough strong colour. Let's go for some more subdued colour. There we go. And then back to a simple warmish wash for the ground. Now because this first wash is painted in this continuous way, effectively I'm not painting anything. So although I'm putting colour in where there are people and where there are stalls, I'm not actually painting people or stalls, I'm just putting colour on. And it's the most relaxing way I know to begin a painting. And that's really the first stage over. Now the next stage is going to be just the more distant elements, and there's not that many, but we would have preferred the sky to be a little bit crisper around some of these, a bit crisper, sharper edge, and I think I'll just redo the sky very slightly around those areas. I don't normally redo skies, but in this case it's not going to matter too much because most of the sky is going to be covered by the trees, so I'll show you what I do to sort of disguise that idea. Now this will give me the edge, but of course what that also gives me is a very awkward. This edge is okay, but this edge isn't good, so what I'll do there is just simply soften that outside edge. Just let it disappear. Remember, when you're softening edges, do not lift your brush until the edge is completely softened. Dry up that little bit of excess there. And not so good there, but we'll be fine. So you can see now how the white building stands out as white, even though strictly speaking, parts of it were the original blue of the sky. And I can do the same thing over here. There's another little building. Again, soften. When you're softening, you must start well away from the edge, because you need somewhere for the softened paint to move into. So if you start right on the edge, there's nowhere for the paint to go, so it doesn't actually soften. Making sure the edges where the trees will ultimately stop, making sure they're nice and uneven. Now with this type of tree, these plain trees, the branches are very pale, and it's a decision as to whether to lift the colour out later or try and paint around it. And I'm going to do a bit of both. So I'm going to paint around the major branches, and then hopefully I'll be able to lift out some of the lesser branches later. Now I'll only do a little bit, and then I'm going to just pause, and I'm going to do some of the branches. The reason I'm doing that is if I continue that until the end, then what will happen is that the first parts will be dry, and I don't want them to be dry. I want to be able to see the branches merging with the leaves. Very important that the branches merge with the leaves. It's a bit of a pain painting around all of these, so I'm just trying to do as little of that as possible, but it's really the only way of getting those really strong light branches. Hey, some darks in there. I don't want the leaves all the same. This is a bit hit and miss. Whether it'll work or not will remain to be seen, but it gives me some variety, and that's really what I'm after. Sometimes making these little patterns, it's tricky. So what I would suggest is trying to join them all up. Don't have separate little dark parts. Make sure the dark parts all interlink. Now it might seem a bit strange making all that effort to get these nice edges for the trees, and then I'm softening some of them, but hopefully you can see how the slight softening here and there just helps to make them a little bit less obvious and just helps to push them back. Now they are quite obvious at the moment because of course it's the only thing I've painted, so obviously they're going to be obvious. Now, while the parts of this are wet, I should be able to scrape out a little bit of light for some more branches. So using the little palette, it's just a palette knife that oil painters would use. Now, if you go too early, what will happen is that the paint will flow back in and it won't lift it out. You have to get the paint just before it starts to dry, which can be a little tricky, but that's the way to do it. And if you get it just before it starts to dry, it will lift out and stay out. And that's really what I'm wanting here. The little noise you hear, I'm just cleaning the end of the palette knife. So that's the little, I'm not sure whether you can hear it or not, that's the little ding. Firstly, I need to just get the sense of the little balcony up here. And you can see the sky through the little balustrade. And so I'm just doing a couple of little lines just to hint at that. And then the windows. Again with windows, I never paint the entire window. I'll always leave parts of it. Now why do I do that? Well, if you paint the entire window as an oblong, it will just look like an oblong. It won't look like a window. Plus, anything as geometric as that will be very, very noticeable by the eye. So therefore, the simplest thing to do is to not paint the entire window, and also to do it in sort of two or three attempts. So this is not the final, these are not the final windows. I will be doing a little bit more. Now just really to sort of set the scene, as it were. Now with the building itself, get a little bit more interest in the building just while I'm there. So a little splash of colour, and then make that disappear. So what that results in is just a touch of extra interest in the building. So the building's a white building, but actually if you look at it, if you really look at the photograph of it, it's not white. There are lots of different colours in it. It may be white when it's just newly painted or something, but this one certainly wasn't newly painted. I think I may have done some blue ones green and some green ones blue, but that won't really matter. So this is just the initial wash. There is a little bit of colour on there, so I'll not paint over everything. In the background, it's not going to matter so much about being very sort of precise about them. In the background, it's they sort of all run, everything runs together in the background, really. I've done these both green, but in fact I think this one really should be blue, but anyway. And with this blue, I'll just strengthen up that left-hand side. So it gives us a suggestion of all the little canopies, the actual canopy roof. Now, we've got all sorts of things going on inside those. Now, most of those are dark, so I'm not going to worry about that too much yet. Instead, I want to start the process of painting the figures. I'm thinking of the proportions of the figures, and the figures roughly, half of the figure is the legs and half the figure is the body. So half and half. So if I get a little, if that's the body, the legs have to come down roughly the same distance. But at this distance, all I'm really doing is just little sort of strange marks. It's a good idea, I think, to do the figure before you do the head. I've done the head first in some of these, and that's simply because That's simply because the head will determine the size of the. If you do the head too big, you then have to make the figure much bigger. So if we go close in again, this time I'll use a little bit of colour. So it's just those first colours. The colours are unimportant. There's not really any point in me telling you what colours I'm using because it really doesn't matter. I'm doing this one red, but you could equally do it blue or green or yellow. So the closer ones are going to be a little bit stronger. What you can also do is lift a touch of light out. The light's coming from the left, so I could take a little bit of light out at the top there. Just gives us a little bit of variation. And I'm just going to continue with that with these closer figures. So these trees, we'll just drop some too greenish, I think. A bit more of the burnt sienna in there. And this is the light of the trunk. So in other words, I'm not doing any shadow on it just yet. I'll do some shadows on the trunk later. I think that gives a reasonable look to the way those trees are arranged. Now the light's coming from the left, so the right hand side of these trees will be darker, much darker actually. I forget which one I started with. This will do. In the distance, not so important. Now, that's not blending just as well as I would have liked, so I'm just going to encourage it slightly. It needs to be slightly damp for this to work well, but I don't want it to be too damp, but I think it is all dried just a little bit too quickly, but that's okay. And then we'll go even darker again, just for a couple of little spots here and there, because I want to start getting the feel of this sunny day. We haven't really done that. I haven't put any shadows in yet. Well, a couple there for the figures, but nothing really. Nothing much. So a few little marks for these shadows going up into the trees. So remember, I've already done one pass on this. Now I'm doing another one. But you can see how that just makes the building and those windows look a little bit more believable. Shadows can be many, many, many different mixes, but this one I find works rather well. The paint is strong, so therefore you don't need too much of it to get a decent strength of shadow. That looks quite reddy, but on the paper, oh, it is quite ready, right? I was going to say on the paper it should be grayer. Just take that down a little bit. Try that. That's better. Better. Don't want too grey. Too grey can be very boring. And then we will get the little connecting shadows. So this is trying to sort of emulate the way the shadow would be on the wrinkles in the clothes. So if we take a little closer look at this, you can see how all these little marks are starting to resemble a group of people. And that's really all I want. It's the same shadow mix. Didn't mean to do that. Same shadow mix. Which means that it stays nicely consistent, but also when you paint over a color, it will look different to when you're painting over a different color, and that's because watercolor is transparent or translucent or whatever you want to call it. Right. Trees shadows. Tree shadows will be slightly different. So there are other trees. So we'll probably have trees here. So I'll just do a little bit of a scribble and then soften. Softening the edges will help, and they will give you a softer shadow, which is sort of what the trees look like. Same thing on the buildings. A little bit of shadow on the buildings and then softening. Shadows on the side of the building. Okay, it's really just sort of the final stages next, and that's really just creating a little bit of extra interest in the place. So it'll be strong, mostly stronger darks or stronger colors. So for example, on our little canopy, we could make this striped, for example. This one to the side was all sorts of strange little marks. Maybe that's a bit too strange. Get a bit of colour into it, at least away from this edge. The actual produce, I'm not going to try it all to actually put the produce in, but all I'm going to do here are a few little marks, a few little different colours, excuse me. And that'll be enough to just hint at something being there. What it actually is isn't important. It was lots of different things, quite a lot. It's quite an artisan market, this one. So there's a lot of locally produced stuff at it, as well as, so there's vegetables, bread, cheese, but then there are little arty things as well. Okay, now stronger, oh, shadows, haven't finished my shadows. We're trying to get a hint of the sort of folds in the fabric. Almost everyone will be carrying a bag. So I want to get some of these bags in as well. Make sure you don't put them all going in the same direction. Some will be over the left shoulder, some will be over the right shoulder. Under here, for example, we're seeing slightly the shadowy underneath of the whoops, one thing I just realized, I have made a major mistake there. Yes, you're seeing, oh dear, that's a pity. You're seeing this little canopy through this one. I think I got away with it. And if I didn't, I didn't. Again, just underneath. Don't need to do them all, don't need to go right down. Some of them are a bit too strong, so I'm just going to soften some of those little posts that I'm making. I think I got them over there, so that's okay. A little bit of stronger dark just under the canopies. So little touches of strong darks just bring things to life. Can't do it too far away because you wouldn't be getting strong darks too far away. And notice that each time I add more paint, I'm adding less of it. Underneath the canopies here, underneath the little cloths, darker. But a sort of broken dark. It's not going to be solid. A little broken line helps with that. What else have we got? The tiles on the paving slabs are running in two directions, this way and this way. And there will be a perspective element to them because they're laid on a flat piece of ground, and once you have anything that is horizontal, the rules of perspective come into it. And what you will find is that the lines of paving slabs, if you continue them, they will all meet at a single point on eye level. Over here, the ones going this way will meet at a single point over there, off the paper, but nevertheless it's over there. Now I just want to hint that they've got very lightly touched in there with pencil, and I'm just hinting at where these are. And the benefit of this is that it gives you a certain flatness to the ground. Now notice what happens. The angle is changing. And it's not a random angle. You can't just make this up. Get a piece of string out, connect them, as you can see in the little photograph there. Connect them and you will get it perfect. You do not need to guess. And then going the other way. Obviously, I don't want to do absolutely every paving slab because that would be overkill. Same way as I don't want to do every leaf. But it's just something to give us a little bit of flatness to the ground. And then on the ground itself, just picking up some random colours here. A couple of little bits of splatter. Just hint that the ground isn't absolutely perfect. There's little stones on it and things like that. Actually, it was pretty perfect. It must be swept before and after, but we'll make it a little bit less perfect. What else? Minor little things. Minor things. This part that's sticking out would be slightly darker than the part that's inside, so we can darken that. Same thing there. It's a minor thing. Is it worth doing? Who knows? Maybe it isn't. So this is my mapping pen or a ruling pen. It has two little blades, metal blades, and a little wheel that allows me to adjust the distance between them. And using that, I will get consistent lines. So in other words, if I do a line with this, if I do a line with my brush, let's see, if I do a line with my brush, unless I'm very, very careful, that line will vary. But using the mapping pen, and you just fill it like this, using the mapping pen, then I get consistent lines. Now you could use a pen, an ordinary pen, but of course an ordinary pen is not watercolor. This is still watercolor. So I can mix up, if I need to do a red line, I can mix up red watercolor. So it's much better that way. Now this is for the telegraph poles or the electricity lines, and important I do this in one go. Best way to do it is to look at where you're going and don't look anywhere else. So just bring your line up, and that way it should work okay. So again, I'm going to do one here going off there, so I'm looking here. Fine. I'm going to do one from here going across to, where am I going across to? There, I think. So same thing. Oh, fill up my pen again. From here, we do it from there, and we're going across to there. So once again, look at where you're going. That way it'll be much easier. And where else can we go? Well, we could have one sort of coming up like that or something. One there. And with this, again, you know, you don't need to have it 100%. In fact, it's better, actually, if it's a bit broken up, then it sort of combines better with everything else. Links better. And I think we are pretty much finished. Can't really see anything obvious that I need to do. No doubt I will when I finish this, but we'll see. Take the tape off. And there you have it, Haria in Lanzarote.